So I wanted to do a quick video on basic usage and installation for 5head.sh. If you're not familiar, it is a big wrapper and script that basically automates a lot of the common repeatable tasks that you perform during a network penetration test. So I've jumped over to my development environment and I wanted to walk you through installation. It's super simple. All you need to do is just clone the repo from GitHub. For the sake of time, I have actually already done that, so we can just jump into the repo and I'll show you what you can expect to find. Super simple. There's just 5head.sh and then setup.sh. You will need to run setup.sh first as the root user, and these will also not be executable by default, so you do need to chmod each of these with a lowercase x, not a big one. And once that's complete, you can run setup.sh. This is pretty quick, and what it does is just grabs a fresh copy of all the tool sets that 5head uses. That way you don't have conflicting dependencies, hopefully. It's always like a knock on wood with Kali I've found in my experience, but the idea is that fresh copies will allow you to use the tool set, and then if you want to go and do your own thing for the rest of the engagement, you can use maybe a fork of a tool or whatever you need to do. So yeah, after a short period of time, you can see that it's complete, and it also sets a lot of the configuration settings in those tool sets as well, which is super handy. So you don't have to go do the same thing over and over. I'll also walk you through the directory structure quickly. So since it might be handy, there's deps, which is short for dependencies. And inside of that directory is where all the tools are stored. And there's also loot, which is empty, but hopefully will be filled with a lot of great information once you start using the tool. All right, so with 5head installed, I'll go ahead and walk you through the arguments that you'll want to pass it. You can view these just by giving it -h, and that will print some of the usage, which unfortunately got cut off here. But yes, there are two mandatory arguments that you do need to pass the tool in all instances for it to work properly, and that is a target file and an interface. Interface is very self-explanatory. It's just the network interface that you want to bind a lot of the traffic poisoning attacks to. And then targets file is a little bit more complex, but also pretty simple. That's just a new line delimited file. It could be whatever with a list of IP addresses in it. So in my case, I'm just going to give it .36, which is like the one host in my lab environment. But let's say your client has a /24 and that's what they want you to pen test. You can throw that in there. It also works with ranges. So if it's let's say a range of 100 hosts within a separate network subnet, you can do that too. Yeah, very flexible. And once that is set, you can again pass that through the -t argument. And then you now get to a lot of the useful but not mandatory arguments, which are heavily baked into the Active Directory functionality that 5head uses. So you've got the domain, which in my case is testlab.local, and that's the -d flag. You've got the domain controller, which is an IP address or a FQDN. I would recommend using the FQDN just for name resolution purposes, although you will need to have DNS working beforehand. So you will need to set your etc resolve.conf. I'll leave that to you because it does kind of depend on what environment you're in, and it is probably useful to make sure that the FQDN you pass resolves, but that will, I think, assist with some of the Active Directory tool sets and some of the errors that you might run into. So in my case, I'm just going to give it the IP for brevity's sake. I'll give it a username, which in my case is Bob, password, and there's Bob's password. And with all the flags set, we can go ahead and run the tool. So we're dropped into the 5head menu. This is the bread and butter of the tool, and it's honestly the part of the tool set that I'm the most proud of. I think it looks great. You'll notice that we now have an interactive menu, and we can enter in numbers to navigate between each of what I call modules, but you can call them menus, I guess, is no way of thinking of them. You'll also notice that we're now within a tmux window. So if we do need to just perform tasks, we can pop open another shell. using tmux binds. I won't go into that because that's kind of like a journey I'll leave you to experience if you have not already. But the toolset does work with your existing tmux configuration. So you should be able to bring that with you, and any key binds that you're used to will be ingested by the toolset. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what usage of the tool, the experience is like. You can go ahead and navigate to each one of these modules by entering the corresponding number. So naturally, I will start with the enumeration module. Once I enter that in, you'll notice at the top, we're now in the enumeration module, and then we have a whole list of nice options. The first option is a traffic capture with TCP dump. And then we also have a bunch of different modules for collecting information on hosts with different crackmap exec protocols. I won't go into each one of these. It is documented in the README. For the sake of time, let's just go ahead and run this second module, which will enumerate our target list with crackmap exec over the SMB protocol. So I'll type in 2, I'll hit enter, and we will be spun into a new tmux window, which you can see at the bottom. And then we have some output telling us what's happening. We have the output of the log file as it's being written to. And then at the top, you can see this is actually crackmap exec running with our custom prompt. So the toolset tells us to press enter in the window above periodically, since crackmap isn't super gracious with or graceful with how it finishes its execution. So we'll press enter, and we can see that this is now complete. If we control C out of this and go to our loot directory, we can now see that there is a enumeration output file written. And that is where the output from our job is stored. So that's a really quick example of how easy it is once you have all the arguments set to start enumerating stuff with 5-head. And again, it's just a really big wrapper around a lot of common tool sets. So mainly being crackmap exec. So shout out to crackmap exec. I'll also kind of walk you through what it would look like to go ahead and start trying to get a foothold within an environment once you have some baseline enumeration configured. So I will navigate to the poison module. And what we will need to do before using any one of these options here is generate a target list. And what this does is this just takes any lists you've generated using the enumeration module, and it basically like creates a nice target list to relay to. So the reason for this extra step is you don't necessarily want to relay traffic to hosts that are not domain joined. It's just unnecessary. And yeah, this just kind of gives you a nice list to use once you start diving into each one of these options. So we'll go ahead and run that. And you can see that it generated a list of SMB targets. Obviously, like the remaining files did not get generated since they don't exist. But yeah, with that created, what we can do is we can go ahead and set up responder and NTLM relay with our targets file. So I will choose the third option for fun. And once we do that, it will ask us if we want to relay the traffic to an individual host or a list of targets. I'll give it my targets file and it will get going. So again, it created a brand new tmux window. On the left here, we have responder running. And on the right, we have NTLM relay running with our targets file that we just created in the earlier step. So up here, you can see SMB targets.txt. And if we jump back over, you can see it's using SMB targets.txt. So it automatically inherits the file that we created. And that's kind of a short little example of how modular and hopefully useful the whole toolset is. So with just a couple keystrokes and the right argument set, you can see that what normally would be like remembering what command to run, or copying and pasting from maybe a cheat sheet you have laying around, it goes from that to just a couple keystrokes. And if you do need to modify anything, it does provide you enough flexibility to where you aren't like nuking someone's environment or risking locking out a bunch of accounts. It should have enough safeguards in place to still be useful. Yeah, I'll finish just by kind of quickly running through one of the Active Directory modules. So this is within the third option, right? We have a lot of different functionality that I find useful during my engagements to kind of lead me down certain paths. And I will talk a little bit later about kind of the plans I have for functionality in future releases of Fivehead. All right, so I will finish off the demo just by demonstrating a quick little functionality within the AD module. So I'll run 8, which is going to check the machine account quota on the domain. It does that using crackmap.exec, and you can see that it uses the -AMMAQ module within the toolset. And just like that, we have a pretty quick idea of some various attack paths within the environment, and then we can pursue those as needed. So that's a brief overview of Fivehead and some of the functionality that it provides. There are a lot more modules that I have already written and that I plan to write. I'll leave that to you to explore, but I did just want to kind of outline some of the future plans I have to include within the tool. Mainly this authentication coercion one I think will be really great. So I'll probably tweet out whenever that's released, or maybe by the time you're watching it, it will already be live. But yeah, really the tool is only as useful as it can be for other people. So what I mean by that is, like, if it doesn't seem practical, or if there are maybe specific pieces of functionality that you think would be great to include, I would love to hear about it. So feel free to like DM me on Twitter or open a PR or an issue. And yeah, it's I think the goal for the whole tool is to hopefully like make it really easy to pursue attack paths that might not be normally revealed by things like Nessus, right? So hopefully it makes it super simple for any operator to come in, drop a tool set on a fresh Kali install, and get to hacking away and pursuing some more custom attack paths that aren't always revealed by like vulnerability scanning tools. It's definitely not a replacement for it, but I do hope that it is a really flexible, portable platform that just helps, make penetration testers' lives a lot easier. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully it looks cool, and yeah, feel free to hit me up if you have any feedback or ideas. I'm always open to it. So sweet, thank you.